Introduction. The Codex of Absolute Shadow. The words that are about to penetrate your mind have not been forged to stroke your ego or to dry your tears. You have come this far crawling through the desert of your own existence, seeking a balm, a compassionate light, an indulgent God to come down from the heavens to forgive your failures and relieve the weight of your inertia. You have been taught to beg for comfort. You have been indoctrinated to believe that spiritual pain is a cosmic injustice and that peace is a right that will be handed to you if you cry with enough devotion. Wake up. Everything you have been told about the mercy of the universe is a monumental farce, a lie designed to keep you on your knees. You are in the pit, and in the deep pit of material existence there are no saviors. There are no choirs waiting to redeem the weak. The universe is a ruthless crucible, deaf to complaints, mute before victimhood, and absolutely blind to excuses. If you have come to this grimoire seeking a docile philosophy, turn back right now, run away. Return to the flock, cover yourself with the wool of ignorance, swallow the poison of shared mediocrity, and continue sleeping the sleep of slaves. This knowledge will destroy you if your spirit is made of glass, for the truths that wait here do not negotiate with human fragility. But if there is a spark of black fire in your entrails, if you are sick of your own lethargy, weary of empty hope, and ready to murder your dearest illusions to claim the undeniable crown of your sovereignty, then you have reached your true home. Life has dragged you to this precipice, not to annihilate you, but to force you to rule. What you are about to hear is the Codex of Absolute Shadow. It is the anatomy of pure power, stripped of cheap morality and the childish fables of ordinary men. Here you will not find words of encouragement, but the sharp sword that will cut the umbilical cord that ties you to your own weakness. You will discover that the pain you always flee from is the only forge capable of hardening your will. You will discover that the darkness you fear so much is the only fertile womb where eternal empires are gestated. From this first second, the pact is sealed with fire. You are going to look into the eyes of the most uncomfortable laws of ascension. You will learn to transmute betrayal into pure gold and to exterminate your past. You will learn to use the cold breath of death as your most loyal advisor. You are going to unearth the relentless monarch that society buried under tons of guilt and false mercy. The time of the beggar is over. The time of the sovereign begins. Prepare your spirit for the impact of truth, for the throne only belongs to those who survive. Chapter 1. The Poison of Hope. Since the dawn of civilization, the shepherds of the multitudes have injected into the veins of humanity a drug so lethal and addictive that it has managed to subdue entire empires without the need to shed a single drop of blood. The priests in the temples, the philosophers of weakness and the moralists of the flock have raised it. They have elevated this drug to the category of supreme virtue. They have wrapped it in chants, painted it gold, and demanded that you worship it. That drug, that slow-acting poison that devours the vital force of your spirit, is called hope. You have been indoctrinated from the cradle to believe that harboring hope is an act of nobility. When ruin knocks at your door, the world pats you on the back and says, "Do not lose hope. Tomorrow will be a better day." When your body sours, they whisper, "Have faith and hope. A miracle will save you." When economic misery suffocates your lineage, you console yourself by murmuring, "Things will get better someday, fate will reward me." Open your eyes and contemplate the silent massacre that these words have caused. Hope is not a life preserver. It is a lead anchor tied to your throat while you drown in the ocean of inertia. It is the most perverse psychological trick ever invented, designed exclusively to pacify the masses and prevent men from awakening the wildfire. In this chapter, we are going to profane the altar of hope. We are going to tear this poison from your nervous system, cell by cell. You will understand with a rawness that will make you tremble that as long as you keep hoping, you will remain a beggar at the gates of existence. You will discover the absolute power of sword certainty. In the parable of the salt dungeon. To understand the abysmal difference between the weakness of hope and the power of certainty, we must descend into the bowels of the earth, to the forgotten legends of the prisoners of the ancient tyrant king of Ophal. Dark chronicles tell that, deep in a salt desert, there was an underground prison carved into the living rock for the lost. In one of its most suffocating, damp and lightless cells, two men condemned to life imprisonment were locked away. The first was named Elian, the second, Caelan. Their only connection to the outside world was a tiny crack in the ceiling where a weak ray of moonlight barely filtered through once a month, and where guards threw dry bread. Elian was a man of noble spirit and pious heart. From the first day of his imprisonment, he clung to hope. He knelt under the ray of light and prayed with fervor. He said to himself, "I am an innocent man. The gods know of my goodness. Surely the tyrant king will die soon, or a new just ruler will ascend and grant a pardon. I must wait." Elian spent his days sitting, looking up at the crack, conserving his energy, dreaming of the day the doors would open by divine grace. His mind lived in the future. He was a peaceful man, sustained only by the golden thread of hope. Caelan, on the contrary, did not look at the crack. He did not pray to anyone in that dark and cold place. The first day of his imprisonment, he felt the cold rock walls, felt the thickness of the rusted iron bars, and understood his reality with glacial coldness. He knew no one would come to rescue him. He knew that the gods do not intervene in the prisons of mortals, and that goodness has no exchange value in the dark underworld of the king. Caelan murdered hope in his own chest that first night. In doing so, he felt an indescribable terror and emptiness, but that emptiness was filled almost immediately by a dark, heavy, and brutal force: certainty. He knew he was going to get out of that cell, not because heaven granted it, but because he himself was going to destroy it. While Elian prayed, Caelan found a small sharp pebble on the floor. During the first year, while his companions sang hymns of comfort, Caelan used the pebble to scrape, millimeter by millimeter, the mortar of the stone that held the main bar. His fingers bled, his nails rotted, and the physical pain was constant. He felt no joy. 10 years passed. The tyrant king of Ophal did not die. No pardon arrived. Elian, the man of hope, had consumed himself. His eyes had lost their spark upon seeing that each year his prayers fell into the void. His body withered from inactivity, and his mind broke under the weight of continuous disappointment. One morning Elian died. He died of old age and sadness, with his gaze still fixed on the crack in the ceiling, waiting for a miracle that was never sent. That same night, Caelan struck the final blow with his bloody stone. The mortar gave way. The heavy iron bar detached from its base. Caelan felt no euphoria. His face was a mask of cold and hard stone. He took the heavy iron, waited in the shadows with the patience of a predator for the guard to come down to remove Elian's corpse. When the guard opened the gate, Caelan raised the iron and crushed his skull in a single movement. He took the keys, took the dead guard's sword, and walked toward the surface into the light of the desert. The man of hope died waiting, devoured by his own comfort. The man of certainty shed blood, destroyed his hands, and conquered his freedom, because he understood that the universe does not save you. The universe forces you to save yourself. The choice was always between the comfort of the dream or the brutal pain of the actual path. So the anatomy of waiting and the delegation of power. Let us dissect the poison. What exactly is hope, and why is it so destructive for the initiate seeking supreme mastery? Hope is the act of fervently wishing for something to happen in the future, implicitly recognizing that you do not possess the absolute control to make it happen. It is a confession of total and utter impotence. When you harbor the hope that your business will prosper, that your health will improve, or that your enemy will be defeated, you are signing a contract of submission. You are accepting that the final result depends on a force outside yourself, luck, market fluctuations, or the will of others. You are giving away your crown. In the depths of Hermeticism, where vibrations dictate the architecture of matter, hope emits the lowest, most dismal, and most pathetic frequency possible. The vibration of hope is the echo of lack. If you hope to have wealth tomorrow, the ether receives a clear message. This man declares that today he is poor and begs for rescue. And because the material universe is a blind mirror that only reflects what is in the absolute present, the mirror returns to you exactly your state of poverty, freezing you in a perpetual waiting room. Hope turns you into a passive spectator of your own ruin. It allows you to tolerate intolerable conditions. It is the perfect sedative. The slave endures the master's lashes because he harbors the sweet hope that the next day the master will be kinder. If that hope were snatched away, If he understood with absolute certainty that the lashes would continue until his death, raw desperation would force him to take a stone and rebel that very night. Hope is a cage. Third, the fallacy of cosmic merit and the end of mercy. To murder hope, you must first extirpate from your mind the deepest tumor of human morality, the absurd belief in cosmic merit. Since we were children, we have been poisoned with fairy tales where the pure of heart, after suffering terrible injustices with resignation and hope, are finally rescued by divine forces of the light. This lie has castrated humanity. You believe that because you are an honorable person, because you do no harm, work from sunup to sundown, and bear your burdens in silence, the universe has a debt to you. You believe there is an old man with a scale in the sky noting your good deeds, and that one day you will receive a reward. Wake up, and do so with the violence of one who receives a bucket of ice water in the face. The universe does not care in the slightest about your goodness, your honor, or your suffering. Existence has no morality. The forces that move the planets and bring down empires are as impersonal, cold, and blind as the law of gravity. If a just man, full of hope, trips and falls down a precipice, gravity does not stop his fall out of respect for his nobility. He will crash against the rocks and his bones will turn to dust. And if the vilest murderer knows how to build a parachute, the law of aerodynamics will save his life. The law has no mercy, it only has mechanics. As long as you keep waiting for the universe to reward you for being good, or for having suffered much, you will remain the beggar with an outstretched hand at the gate of eternity. Dense matter does not respond to the sobs or prayers of slaves. Dense matter only bows to the weight of will, to the pressure of certainty and to action. Fast the ritual of annihilation and the birth of certainty. The step that separates the ordinary man from the forger of realities is a dark, painful, and terrifying initiation rite. It is the murder of hope. You have to voluntarily renounce comfort. You have to look around, contemplate your debts, your illnesses, or your failures, and embrace the revelation that no one is coming to save you. Repeat it in the silence of your chamber until the phrase tears your throat. No one is coming. The heavens are empty. My salvation will not arrive in the future. If I do not get up today and gut this obstacle with my own hands, I will die in this very pit, and the world will forget me before sunset. This is the death of the weak self. When you murder hope, when you accept the raw orphaning of your spirit in the immense void of the cosmos, the initial panic threatens to paralyze you. You feel the vertigo of the abyss. But if you hold the gaze, the panic burns itself out, and from its ashes emerges the most destructive force of inner alchemy, cold certainty. Hope is hot, feverish, emotional, and doubtful. Certainty is glacial, immovable, factual, and lethal. When a sovereign decides to conquer a territory or amass a fortune, he does not hope to achieve it. He does not cross his fingers. The sovereign decrees the final result with the same bored coldness as the rising of the sun. Do you have hope that upon dropping a stone it will fall to the ground? No, you have certainty. You know that gravity will do its job, and therefore you do not invest a single gram of emotional energy in doubting the result. That is the vibratory state you must reach regarding your greatest ambitions. The monarch has certainty. Fee the dangerous man without consolation. A man who has no hope of being saved becomes the most dangerous being on earth. He does not doubt. He does not tire with small things. He does not care about the opinion of the rabble because he knows the judgment of fools does not produce bread nor forge gold. This pure energy, devoid of sentimentality, emits a frequency that bends the ether. People around you, used to interacting with fragile and hopeful beings, step back before the iron wall of your conviction. When you offer a deal, when you demand payment, or when you demand loyalty, you do not do it with the pleading tone of one who hopes for a favor. You demand it with the weight of the lion claiming its prey, and the world, which is by nature submissive to unconditional force, will bow its head and hand you what you ask. Not out of mercy, but out of a survival instinct before the undeniable presence of a colossus who has purged his soul of weakness. When you stop asking permission from fate, fate begins to ask instructions from you. Foisave, the embrace of the cold and the tomb of waiting. The true initiation has begun. From this day forward, I strictly forbid you from using the word hope in your decrees of power. Erase from your vocabulary the phrases that delegate your sovereignty to others. Never again say, "I hope the business works." If you utter that phrase, you are declaring your own defeat. You must act. You must say, "The business will grow and crush the competition, because I will be the executing arm of its relentless expansion." Never again say, "I hope to get out of this misery." You must say, "This misery is dead, because I am going to incinerate it this very day with the fire of my labor, without rest and without mercy." Replace the sweet anesthesia of waiting with the crushing responsibility of "I command." Take all the childhood illusions that kept you comfortable in your misery. Gather the false promises of gurus who told you the universe would reward you without effort, and throw them into the funeral pyre. Watch the black smoke of dead hopes. Chapter 2: The Farce of Morality. There is a contradiction that has tormented the hearts of men since the beginning of time, an open wound in the human psyche that makes scholars doubt and devotees go mad. Observe the theater of the world with coldness, and you will see it in every corner. Men and women of undeniable goodness, compassionate and self-sacrificing. They live crushed by misery, suffering betrayals, diseases and ruin until their last breath. And at the opposite extreme, you will contemplate ruthless tyrants, beings devoid of empathy and compassion, who amass colossal fortunes, enjoy unshakable health and die of old age in beds of silk, surrounded by luxury and power. Upon witnessing this apparent aberration, the ordinary man raises his fist to the sky, his face bathed in tears, and screams, "It is unfair. Where is the punishment for the wicked? Where is the reward for the good? Why does the universe allow this aberration?" The answer to that desperate cry is the darkest and most terrifying secret. It is a truth so raw that religions and mass control systems have shed oceans of blood to hide it. The truth is that the universe is morally blind. In the supreme domains of energy and dense matter, the concepts of good and evil are infantile illusions, pathetic fictions invented by weak men to try to control the strong. The fabric of the cosmos does not care about your purity, your good intentions, or your herd morality. Existence has no court of cosmic justice. It only obeys the law of cause and effect, polarity, and naked vibration. In this chapter, we are going to gut the farce of morality. We will extirpate the parasite of guilt from your brain. You will learn why the universe rewards the ruthless and crushes the martyr. And you will discover how to claim your crown by operating beyond good and evil, in the state of absolute and icy grace that belongs only to the true sovereigns. The universe does not judge the ethics of a command, it only evaluates the strength and clarity of it. The parable of the two sowers and the mute rain. To demolish the blindness of human virtue and understand the implacable mechanics of the universe, we must open the heavy annals of the dry lands of the East and remember the legend of the Valley of Kedar. It is told that in that arid valley lived two peasants whose fields were neighbors. The first, named Eliel, was a man of immense goodness. He shared his bread with beggars, never raised his voice, forgave those who robbed him, and spent hours on his knees praying to the gods to send rain. Eliel believed, with devout faith, that his purity of heart would force the heavens to bless his harvest. The second peasant, named Dastan, was feared and hated by all the people in the valley. He was a relentless man with a gaze of ice and a heart of stone. He gave no alms, felt no mercy for the weakness of others, and did not waste a single second praying. He knew the gods do not drink tears. While Eliel prayed, Dastan took his whip, forcibly hired dozens of desperate men, and made them work under the scorching sun without rest. With blood and sweat, he built an intricate system of canals that diverted water from a distant river directly to his property. The season of extreme drought arrived. The sun burned the earth like an open oven. The field of Eliel, the just and good man, turned to dust. His seeds were scorched. His children wept from hunger and thirst. Eliel, wrapped in rags, threw himself onto the cracked ground, raised his bloody hands to the empty sky and pleaded, "I have been pure. I have caused no harm to anyone. I have been the embodiment of virtue. Why do you condemn me to hunger if I am worthy of your love?" The sky did not respond. Not a single cloud appeared on the horizon. Eliel died of starvation, clutching his own useless goodness. A few meters away in the field of Dastan, the ruthless man, The earth was moist, black, and overflowing with life. The water flowed through the canals he had forged with cruelty and calculation. His wheat grew tall and golden. His silos were filled to the very brim with grain. Dastan did not thank the heavens. He looked at his work, smiled with pride, and sat down to enjoy the feast that his own hand had guaranteed. The village cursed Dastan, claiming that the world was broken. But the world was not broken. The world worked with a terrifying perfection. The universe did not reward Dastan's cruelty or punishment. To the water of the earth and the sun of the sky, the morality of both men was absolutely indifferent. The physical law of agriculture dictates that the earth needs water to bear fruit. Dastan executed the cause, bringing water through canals, and obtained the effect, the harvest. Eliel did not execute the cause. He pretended virtue was coin. He pretended his goodness was the currency to violate the laws of physics. And physics, which has no heart or mercy, let him die of hunger. The universe does not reward the saint. It rewards the one who understands and applies the law of cause and effect with total focus and without any internal friction or moral hesitation. To the fiction of virtue and the cosmic mechanism. Listen to the wind howling over Eliel's dead field, because that is the same tragic melody that plays in the lives of millions of men and women who today consider themselves good. Since your childhood, society has injected you with a conceptual poison designed to domesticate you. They have taught you that virtues like humility are noble. They taught you that sacrifice, infinite patience, putting others first and not seeking power, are attributes that make you worthy of blessings. Religion, school, and the herd conditioned you to feel shame for your instincts of conquest, labeling them as sins of ambition, selfishness, or greed. Why was this farce created for you? Morality is not a cosmic law. It is a socio-political invention created by the weak to protect themselves from the strong. It is the containment tool of the herds. If you manage to convince a lion that using its claws and eating meat is a sin, and that the supreme virtue is eating grass and being sheared, you have tamed the beast. You have tamed the beast without firing a single arrow. The sheep is safe and the lion dies of malnutrition, believing he is a saint. You have been that lion ashamed of his own fangs. You have been conditioned to believe that if you desire obscene wealth, you are bad. If you demand absolute obedience, you are called tyrannical. If you cut ties with toxic relatives because they drain your energy, you are ruthless. And because you have a dread of being considered bad by the tribunal of the rabble, you repress your will. You make yourself small. You cede your power. You give your money to parasites. You tolerate abuses with a false smile, believing in rewards. You believe that tameness will grant you a place in a future paradise or attract positive karma. But the law of vibration does not know what goodness is. For the universe, a vibration of sacrifice and humility is translated mathematically as a vibration of inferiority, smallness, submission, and lack. It receives that signal clearly. If you behave like the servant of the world to prove your goodness, the universe, blind and impartial, obeys your vibration and says, "This individual emits the frequency of a servant." Granted, send him more masters to give him orders, more parasites to squeeze him, and more scarcity so that he may continue practicing his humility. Third, the punishment of the innocent and the vibration of the martyr. This is the profound and secret reason why people considered good suffer continuous tragedies. It is not a divine test. It is the result of their own energetic signature. The good man, the martyr who sacrifices himself for everyone, generally harbors in the depths of his subconscious a poisonous lake of repressed resentment. He suffers for others, but secretly hopes that others will recognize it. Not receiving the recognition he believes he deserves, he fills with bitterness. His internal vibration is a constant lament. I give everything and the world pays me poorly. The energy he projects is not pure love, but chronic victimhood. It is a debt. It is a cosmic debt that he himself has invented. And because the universe is the perfect mirror, it reflects his inner conviction by delivering situations in which, indeed, the world pays him poorly, betrays him, and abandons him, to prove his belief that being good hurts. Furthermore, the martyr lives infected by guilt. Guilt is the heaviest, darkest, and most corrosive vibration that can inhabit the human soul. When the good man desires something great for himself, say, a commercial empire, immediately his domesticated mind injects guilt. I should not desire so much money while people go hungry. It is selfish to think only of myself. It kills him. In the alchemy of manifestation, guilt is the scissors that cut the cord of miracles. If you ask for success but feel guilty for deserving it, that guilt generates a clash of resistance in the ether. Guilt is the emotional equivalent of saying, I deserve to be punished. And the universe, in its automatic obedience, stops you. It stops your success, makes your business fail, or sends you a disease, thus satisfying your subconscious mandate for punishment. The tragedies of the innocents are rarely misfortunes of chance. They are the exact and mathematical fulfillment of their own vibration of unworthiness and martyrdom. The universe does not care. The universe does not punish them for being good. The universe crushes them for being weak, for being fragmented, and for emitting the signal of the prey in a forest of predators. To survive and reign, you must stop being the prey and start being the one who dictates the frequency of the hunt. You must purge the guilt from your blood. The triumph of the ruthless and the purity of certainty. Turn your gaze now toward those the world labels as villains, ruthless, or tyrants, men who break the moral rules of the tribe, who build empires by crushing the competition, and who never look back with regret. Why does the universe cover them with gold and grant them power over the earth? Do the shadows reward evil? The answer will chill your blood. The universe does not reward their evil. The universe rewards the total absence of internal friction. The ruthless man, the cold conqueror, lacks the parasite of guilt. When he desires to seize a market, he does not waste a single millisecond of his night, wondering if it is morally right to do so. He does not feel bad for desiring obscene riches. He does not ask forgiveness for his ambition. Having no guilt, there are no doubts in his mind. Having no doubts, his will is a unified ray, dense, sharp, and of a terrifying purity. His vibration in the ether is a direct and flat order. This is mine, and I take it. The ether obeys. The universe, which is an impersonal force, receives this signal. It does not judge the ethics of the mandate. It only evaluates the strength, the clarity, and the absence of resistance of the signal. Upon detecting a frequency of absolute certainty, devoid of guilt or moralistic doubts, matter curves, circumstances open up. People submit. The universe hands the empire to the dark man simply because he was the only one who had the audacity to demand the crown without apologizing to heaven for having taken it. The purity of certainty will always, absolutely always, defeat the lukewarmness of moral doubt. A fierce immoral will move mountains. A fierce will move mountains, while a good will plagued by guilt will not be able to move a single grain of sand. The universe responds to the intensity and coherence of the frequency, not to the labels of good or bad that human societies use to maintain order among the commoners. Be the frequency that knows no hesitation, far beyond good and evil, the ethics of the sovereign. Do not confuse this revelation with an apology for vulgar cruelty. The true monarch is not a psychopath who causes pain to others for the simple pleasure of destroying them. Causing unnecessary suffering is an act of friction, noise, and wasted energy. Typical of irrational beasts or scared tyrants, they are not true kings. The sovereign who has mastered the laws of the occult is not bad. He simply operates in a dimension that is beyond good and evil. The sovereign is not ruled by the morality of slaves, the fear of social or divine punishment. The sovereign is ruled by his own unshakable and icy code of honor. He is his own judge. If the sovereign decides to help a fallen man, he does not do so because his religion commands it, or to earn heaven, or out of pity. He does so because in the infinite abundance of his power, shedding a drop of his light feels natural and majestic. If the sovereign decides to destroy an enemy, he does so with surgery. He annihilates the competition or cuts the head of a betrayal with surgical cleanliness, speed, and the cold indifference with which a gardener pulls poisonous weeds from his perfect garden. And when the enemy's head falls, the sovereign feels not a single drop of remorse, because he knows protecting his empire is a mandate. The sovereign does not crawl seeking moral justifications for his acts. He is his own compass. His will is the law, and excellence is his only religion. He recognizes that to raise the pyramids of his own destiny, there will be stones that must be crushed and wood that must be burned. He assumes that price with an iron face. Fifth ritual of the extirpation of guilt. To cross the threshold that separates you from absolute shadow and claim the power of cold certainty, you must undergo today, in the immobility of your spirit, the surgical extirpation of the parasite. You have to murder guilt. Tonight, when the gloom invades your bedroom, you will review the weak doctrines you have been fed. Remember all the times you made yourself small, so as not to offend the insecurity of the mediocre people around you. Remember all the times you gave away your money, your time, or your energy out of pity, betraying your own well-being. Remember the disgust of the times you apologized for having talent and vision. Remember the times you apologized for having a voracious hunger for greatness. Identify that feeling of guilt in your chest. Feel its sticky density, its smell of a kneeling slave. And then, with the icy fury of the emperor, drive the sword of your will into the center of that emotion and tear it out by the roots. Destroy it. Say in the silence of your mind, with a violence that makes your bones tremble, I renounce the herd. I renounce the pride of martyrs. I renounce the sterile compassion that ties me to losers. I declare the death of my own imposed morality. From this millisecond, the blood of my enemies and the tears of the weak have no weight. They have no weight in my scale. I owe nothing to men and I owe nothing to the heavens. My ambition is pure, my power is legitimate, and I will devour this material world without asking permission and without looking back. Upon emitting this decree and destroying the fear of being judged, you will feel a burst in your system. It is the dog's chain snapping into 1,000 pieces. It is the weight of 3,000 years of religious indoctrination falling from your shoulders. You will feel amazingly light, dangerously free. A dark, serene, and colossal force will rise from your belly, filling your lungs with the icy oxygen of true, ruthless freedom. Serve the executioner of your own law. The bandage has fallen. The farce has collapsed. The naked and blind universe now stretches out before you, like an immense and terrifying blank canvas, waiting for you to stain it with the colors of your own sacred tyranny. Never again expect the world to reward your goodness. The world will devour you if you are good. The world will devour you if you are good and weak, and it will kneel at your feet if you are fierce and focused. Gravity does not forgive the ignorant, and the abyss does not spit out the one who falls by accident. The era of justifying yourself before the eyes of the herd has ended. The era of apologizing is dead ash. Raise your head, harden your skin, strip your heart of the weaknesses of modern man. You are the judge, the jury, and the executioner of your own domains. You do not account to the empty echoes of human morality. You account only to the result, and the result will be your empire relucent and undisputed under the sun. Chapter 3. The Altar of the Flesh, the Biology of the Spirit and the Forging of the Divine Lightning Rod. There is a silent heresy that has infected the schools of the misnamed spiritual seekers, a seductive and cowardly lie that has turned thousands of men with the potential of kings into fragile, mystical, and useless creatures for material life. It is the belief that matter and spirit are two divorced realms, and that the flesh is a gross illusion. Under this poisonous doctrine, the weak man sits in a lotus position for hours, closing his eyes to visualize incalculable fortunes and cosmic domains, while his physical body, abandoned to inertia, rots in weakness. His belly is soft, his lungs are unable to sustain the breath of effort, his blood is thick with the poisons of gluttony and sloth. He believes in his monumental blindness that he can be a titan in the invisible realms of the ether while remaining a worm in the dense realm of matter. High magic and ruthless metaphysics dictate a law that makes cowards tremble. As above, so below. But the below is the anchor that holds the above. Your physical body is the only mechanism. In this chapter, we are going to tear the cheap mysticism from your mind. We are going to profane the temples of incense and drag you back to the rawness of your own blood, to the density of your bones, and to the tension of your tendons. You will learn why fasting is the most lethal weapon of occultism, and why physical pain is a true baptism. The parable of the iron chalice and the porcelain cup. To understand the tragedy of invoking fire without having prepared the forge, we must go back to the ancient peaks of the Vael mountain range, where the order of the priests of the Black Flame subjected their initiates to the final test of ascension. Inscriptions tell that after a decade of mystery, 2 acolytes were chosen to receive the fire. The first was Kyle, a scholar of brilliant intellect who had memorized every book. Kyle despised physical effort. He considered the body a mundane distraction. He spent his days reclining on silk cushions, eating honey sweets and reciting mantras, convinced that the purity of his mind was enough to contain the gods. He was fragile as porcelain. The second acolyte was Varan. Varan did not speak with the eloquence of his companion, but he knew the law of density. During those 10 years, Varan went out every dawn to plunge into the frozen waters of the peak lakes. He fasted for weeks, drinking only water. He carried colossal stones until his hands bled and his muscles groaned from exhaustion. The night of the solstice, the high priest took them to the underground chamber, where the fire of pure manifestation burned, an energy of such high frequency that the air hummed. The energy about to penetrate your spirits is the living force of material creation, the old man warned. It will grant power, but it will demand a solid anchor. Kyle, the scholar, was the first. With a smile of spiritual arrogance, he invoked the fire. The energy descended like a waterfall of unbearable light. At first, Kyle's face lit up with divine majesty. But then, his nervous system, pampered by comfort, was unable to withstand the voltage. His knees trembled. A scream of terror escaped his lips. The energy began to burn his nerves, boil his thick blood, and fracture his mind. Kyle collapsed on the floor, writhing in convulsions. When the light dissipated, only a babbling blind man remained. The porcelain cup had shattered while trying to contain molten lead. Varan advanced toward the altar. His face was a mask of lethal concentration. He planted his bare feet on the frozen stone, tensed the muscles forged by years of rigor, took a deep breath and received the impact. The fire fell upon him with the fury of a titan. Varan's muscles tensed until they almost tore the skin. His veins swelled like steel ropes and cold sweat beaded his forehead. But he did not yield. His body held. His body, accustomed to pain, cold, and brutal resistance, absorbed the shock. His nervous system conducted the lightning, anchoring it firmly in the deep earth. When the ceremony ended, Varan opened his eyes. In his pupils there was a colossus. He had demonstrated to the abyss that he possessed an iron vessel worthy of housing the gods. Thrice the lightning rod of the gods and the physics of invocation. Listen to the echo of this tragedy, because the graveyards of life are full of broken scholars who tried to manifest empires with crystal nervous systems. Magic, will, and the ability to influence matter are not abstract fantasies. They are real electromagnetic phenomena processed through human biology. Your brain and nerves are the high-voltage hardware. When you demand absolute wealth and dominion over the masses, you are asking the universe to discharge millions of volts of creative energy and crushing responsibility upon your life. What do you think happens when a man who pants climbing 3 flights of stairs, who trembles at a cold draught, and who yields to every appetite receives power? The pressure of success, the attacks of envy, the logistics of empire, and the isolation of the throne require extreme biological density. If your body is poisoned by weakness, you will make bad decisions, and your mind will collapse under the weight of the crown. The universe rarely delivers the fire to porcelain, for it is a waste of energy. The first law of the altar of the flesh is non-negotiable. You must turn your body into a lightning rod of obsidian and steel. You must cultivate a fierce, primitive, and unbreakable animal vitality, so that when the divine energy hits your head, it can flow through your spine and anchor in the earth without burning out your circuits and nerves. Thirst, the putrefaction of the blood and the cult of gluttony. To build this lightning rod, you must first abandon the most disgusting cult of modern civilization, the dictatorship of comfort and the hedonism of the stomach. The human being of the multitudes is an absolute slave to his viscera. He spends his entire life chewing, digesting, and seeking comfort. If he feels a void, he panics and fills it. His blood is perpetually thick, occupied in the exhausting and constant task of processing the excess of useless matter he ingests due to mere emotional boredom. In the metaphysics of the blood, constant digestion is the greatest thief of prana, vital energy. When your stomach is full, the creative force is kidnapped and sent to your intestines. Your mind becomes lethargic, foggy, and heavy. The satiated and comfortable man loses his edge. The lion that has just devoured its prey lies under the shade of a tree and falls asleep, vulnerable and lazy. The lion is only dangerous, brilliant, and lethally intelligent when the roar of hunger resonates in its entrails. It is the law of the wild. If you try to apply the techniques of manifestation or the concentration of the unified ray while you are heavy, satiated, and poisoned by lethargy, your signals will be weak, opaque, and dead. Trying to perform magic with a full stomach and a body relaxed in pleasure is like trying to light a campfire under a downpour. It is a futile effort. For the alchemy of fasting, hunger as a sword. The initiate wields one of the oldest and most sacred tools of transmutation, the alchemy of fasting. True fasting is not a diet for the vain. It is an act of metaphysical insurrection. It is the most brutal declaration of war the spirit can make against the tyranny of the flesh. When you decide to deny food, you unleash an internal holocaust. In the first hours, your animal body, spoiled and used to continuous servitude, will rebel with fury. It will send you headaches, dizziness, and waves of anxiety. The lower mind will scream, demanding its cheap comfort. That is the moment when the ego writhes in the bonfire. If you resist the storm with an imperial indifference, a miracle occurs. By not having to spend immense vital energy on digesting dense matter, the nervous system recovers all that power. The blood purifies itself, burning the toxins of the past. But something more sublime happens in your vibratory field. Your aura expands. Your senses become sharp as ice blades. Mental fog vanishes, giving way to predatory lucidity. In this state of holy hunger, your will finds no resistance. If you sit to work on your empire or focus your intention while in a deep fast, the signal you emit is not that of a sleepy sheep. It is the signal of the alpha predator, hungry and pure. The universe trembles before the man who starves his instincts to feed only his purpose. Communion with hard matter, voluntary pain. The final step that separates the master from the slave is the implacable communion with voluntary physical pain. Society has built a pantheon dedicated to the avoidance of pain. They tell you to seek the softest chair and the slightest effort. This obsession with comfort has created men of jelly whose spirits break at the first breeze of adversity. The sovereign knows the ancient secret. He who inflicts his own pain becomes immune to the punishment of the world. If you do not force your body to suffer on your own terms, the universe will send you sufferings you did not choose. You must turn pain into your ally, your advisor, and the hammer that forges your armor. You must embrace the rigor. You must rise in the darkness of dawn and plunge into freezing waters. When the icy water hits your skin and instinct screams for you to flee to the heat, you must stay motionless. Feel the cold penetrate to the bone, master the erratic breathing, and force your flesh to submit to the icy mandate of your central will. You are the absolute master. You must subject your muscles to the limit of exhaustion. Carry weights that challenge your skeleton. Run until your lungs burn and the acid of fatigue floods your veins. And right there, when your animal mind begs you to stop, you take one more step, one more strike, one more breath in the ice. This is a rite of deep sorcery for the soul. Every time you choose physical pain, you are demonstrating in a raw and biological way that the spirit is the master and the flesh is the slave. You are expanding the capacity of your nervous system to tolerate high voltage. If you can master the panic of your body suffocating in the ice, the threats of the ordinary world will seem like child's play. The blood of the monarch and the liturgy of purity. Once you have purged your temple through fasting and forged its foundations through physical rigor, the altar of the flesh demands perpetual reverence. You must understand that every piece of matter you put into your mouth is a ritual of assimilation. When you consume something, it becomes the atoms of your own being. What you eat, you are. Observe the inertial man devouring industrial trash and chemical poisons, created in the laboratories of modern merchants. He ingests death, lethargy, and toxicity. Then he wonders why his thoughts are mediocre and fearful. He has built the throne of his consciousness with radioactive debris and rotten wood. He is a walking graveyard of energy. The monarch treats his own body with the demanding cruelty of one who knows he houses a god. He selects the fuel for his blood with a ruthless elitism. He consumes the purity of the earth and living water. He rejects the gluttony of swine. He rejects alcohol and substances that cloud the third eye. He does this for cold metaphysical engineering. He knows that clean blood generates a massive, dense, and impenetrable electromagnetic field. His vitality becomes so radiant that minor illnesses bounce off his shield, and people around him feel the force of his biological gravity from miles away. The body is not a dumpster for your anxieties. It is the temple where the absolute shadow descends. Zeus, the conquest of the continent of flesh. Look at your hands. Feel the musculature beneath your skin. Listen to the rhythmic, dull animal heartbeat in your chest. Stop insulting existence by trying to flee from your physical envelope. You did not come to this dense world to be a floating spirit, lost in clouds of incense and cheap philosophies of inaction. You came to reign here. You came to drive the flag of your will into the living rock. You came to colonize matter. And the first continent you must conquer with blood and fire is your own body. From this moment on, declare absolute tyranny over your instincts. Starve the animal when it asks for comfort. Drown its fears in the waters of the most extreme rigor. Inflict upon yourself the tests that will harden your bones until every fiber of your anatomy recognizes that the sovereign has taken control of the palace. Do not wait for the fire of the gods to descend upon a cracked porcelain cup. Pour the iron, endure the forge, and raise a biological lightning rod so immense and pure that you will hold. When the glory, wealth, and power of creation hit your life, you will not break in convulsions. You will receive the impact standing, with your eyes wide open, letting the lightning flow through your marrow to the earth itself, showing the stars and men that the fire of the universe has finally found a temple of flesh, worthy of its eternal tyranny. Chapter 4. The Blessing of Betrayal. There is a pathetic lament that resounds perpetually in the corridors of human history, a miserable cry that weak men raise to the heavens when the illusion of loyalty is broken. It is the cry of the betrayed man. Observe the ordinary individual when he discovers that his partner has stolen from him, or his lover has cheated on him. The inertial man collapses. He tears his garments. He wallows in the mud of victimhood and screams, "I gave him all my honor. I gave him my blind trust. How could he do this to me who was so noble?" He spends the following years of his pathetic existence poisoned by resentment, brooding over revenge and distrusting the entire world. He becomes a walking mausoleum, a monument dedicated to venerating the dagger that was driven into his back. But in the most inaccessible heights of the occultism of the absolute shadow, betrayal is not mourned. Betrayal is celebrated with a cold and lethal smile. The true initiate, the monarch who masters the ether, knows the truth. He knows that human loyalty is a fragile illusion, a temporary pact based on convenience and fear. He knows that the universe detests crutches and abhors emotional dependency. Therefore, when betrayal occurs, the sovereign does not see a tragedy. He sees a divine intervention. He sees the scalpel of existence cutting away the dead flesh. In this chapter, we are going to profane the altar of friendship and blind trust. We are going to gut the anatomy of betrayal so that you understand, with a rawness that will make your bones tremble, why every person who has stabbed you in the back has been sent, orchestrated, and financed by your own higher soul for your own growth. The parable of the ash throne and the three daggers. To understand the cosmic necessity of betrayal and the hidden weakness in company, we must unearth the chronicles of the ancient king Caelin, the conqueror of the Onyx Valleys. It is said that Caelin was a young, brilliant, and victorious king, but in his heart he harbored a secret fear, the terror of ruling alone in the cold world. Therefore he built his empire on the shoulders of three allies whom he loved as blood brothers. The first was his supreme general, the second was his treasurer, and the third was his senior advisor. Caelin gave them the keys to his chambers, his strategies, and his own mind. He believed that their union was an invincible force for all. But the inertia of power is implacable. Caelin, trusting in his allies, stopped sharpening his own sword. He stopped counting the gold with his own hands and stopped meditating in silence. He softened in the comfort of trust. One moonless night, on the eve of the harshest winter, the illusion shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. The three allies, corrupted by ambition and seeing the king's softness, orchestrated a coup in the shadows. They entered his private quarters. The general snatched the sword from his hands, the treasurer tore the gold seal from his finger, and the adviser whispered in his ear that his reign had always been a farce before the fall. They threw him out of the castle window toward the dark abyss. Caelan did not die in the fall. His body was shattered among the rocks and snow, but his physical agony was nothing compared to the torture of his soul. For 3 days and 3 nights, he lay in the ice crying tears of blood, crying out to heaven for the great injustice. On the 4th day, at the edge of freezing, Caelan had a revelation. A dark and abyssal voice resonated from the depths of his own entrails, not from the sky. "Fool," whispered the voice, "you cry for the thieves, when you should kiss their hands. I, your true essence, forced them to betray you. You had become a parasite of their strength. You delegated your will to the general, your wealth to the treasurer, and your wisdom to the adviser. You were a straw king held up by 3 rotten pillars. They did not steal the empire from you. They simply took away the toys you did not have the courage to hold by yourself." In that millisecond, Caelan's sadness evaporated forever. The black fire of understanding ignited his blood and melted the ice around him. He understood that the 3 traitors were not his enemies. They had been his most brutal teachers, the executors of his own weakness. Caelan healed his broken bones with the fury of pure will. He spent 7 years in exile, in the burning desert and peaks. He learned to forge steel with his own hands, to multiply gold from nothing, and to master the mysteries of the ether in absolute solitude. He himself became army, treasure, and priest. When he finally returned to the capital, he did not do so leading troops. He entered alone. The obsidian gates exploded at his very step in the city. The 3 traitors, who had turned the kingdom into a hell of internal disputes, were paralyzed with terror at seeing not the trusting boy they had thrown out, but a colossus, a god of war crowned with immobility and silence. Caelan did not raise his voice. He simply looked at them with the crushing indifference of one who sees insects. The traitors fell to their knees, crushed by the immense gravity of a man who no longer needed anyone. The king reclaimed his throne of ash and ruled for 100 years in the most perfect, glorious, and untouchable solitude, blessing every night the memory of the 3 daggers that had finally forced him to awaken to his power. Turt, the anatomy of the traitor and the mirror of your weakness. Let us dissect the corpse of betrayal and expose its putrid organs to the light of truth. Who is the traitor, and why does he approach you? The inertial man believes that the traitor is a monster that appears by chance. The alchemy of the absolute shadow dictates that chance does not exist. The traitor is a magnetic creation of your flaws. When you begin the path to power, your aura begins to emit an intense light. You emit heat, you emit purpose. But if in the depths of your psyche you still harbor the weakness of the child, the need to be loved, the fear of being alone, the pathetic desire for approval, your aura simultaneously emits a signal of distress to the world. Traitors are parasitic entities that operate on very low frequencies. They lack their own light. They are irremediably attracted by the heat of your bonfire. They approach you disguised as allies, partners, friends, or loyal lovers. They tell you exactly what your weakness needs to hear. They flatter you, they swear eternal loyalty to you. And you, blind with the hunger for company, lower your shields. You open the gates of your castle wide, but the parasite cannot tolerate pure light for long. Its nature is scarcity. When they discover that your light blinds them and that your rise threatens to highlight their own mediocrity, their animal survival instinct is activated. In order not to feel inferior, they need to tear you down, they need to put out the bonfire. And then, when you are distracted, celebrating the false brotherhood, they attack. The dagger in the back is not an accident. It is the mathematical response of an inferior creature to a light it cannot understand or equal. It is their biology. Third, the cosmic pruning and the fire that purifies. Stop lamenting the spilled blood and raise your vision toward the spheres of the blind universe. Betrayal is the most perfect, brutal, and efficient mechanism that existence has to protect your destiny. Visualize your life as an immense ancestral oak tree destined to touch the clouds. To grow, it needs to direct all its sap upward, but if the tree is full of low, dead or parasitic branches, the sap is dispersed. The tree weakens and never reaches the sky. The people who betray you are the rotten branches of your life. They are dead weights that anchor you to lower frequencies. But since you are a slave to sentimental attachment, you never have the courage to cut. You would never take the axe and cut those branches yourself. You are fond of them. You feel pity for them. You lie to yourself saying, "They will change. We have been through a lot together." Since you are a sentimental coward and incapable of doing the dirty work, your higher self takes control of the cosmic machinery for your own sake. It forces those dead branches to fall off on their own. It manipulates the strings of the ether so that the partner steals from you, so that the friend lies to you, or so that the lover abandons you in the most painful way possible. The universe orchestrates the betrayal so that the pain and disgust are so immense that you let them go. The pain of the stab is the surgical fire that cauterizes the wound and prevents you from bleeding from the same place again. Betrayal is a cosmic pruning. It is the universe cleaning your palace of the scum, because a coronation is coming and the pigs cannot be in the throne room. To cry for a traitor is to cry for the trash taken away, sigh for the poison of Christian forgiveness and supreme indifference. At this point, the weak philosophies and the doctrines of the herd will try to inject you with their most destructive poison. They will tell you that you must forgive the traitor. They will tell you that you must send him light and understanding. Listen carefully. The forgiveness of the slaves is the greatest aberration of magic. When you try to justify the one who stabbed you, you are not demonstrating spiritual superiority. You are demonstrating a pathological need to feel morally superior while wallowing in humiliation. You are sending your energy, your precious prana, to a worm that does not deserve it. In this codex, the sovereign does not forgive. But he does not seek revenge either. Revenge is the reverse of the same coin. If you spend your days planning how to destroy the one who betrayed you, you are admitting that this person has power over you. You are tying your mind and your resources to the corpse of an enemy. Revenge is an energetic bond that keeps you a prisoner. The supreme weapon of the monarch is not forgiveness or the sword. It is abyssal indifference. For you, the traitor ceases to exist. He turns to dust. He is erased from the records of your universe. When you remember his face, you feel no hate, no sadness, no pity. You feel the same cold, bored, and neutral void as looking at a stone. Total responsibility, the mirror of your own naivety. For this transmutation to be perfect, you must swallow the most bitter medicine of this grimoire. You have to assume total blame. You have to stop telling yourself the pathetic story that you were a poor white dove attacked by a malignant crow. The betrayal would never have occurred if you had not opened the door yourself. You delivered the codes. You exposed your jugular. You refused to see the warning signs because you were desperate to believe in the fairy tale of eternal loyalty. You projected your own nobility onto a peasant. You put a crown on a toad and were indignant when the toad jumped into the mud. The pain is the shame of being so stupid. Assume that fury. Swallow it whole. Say in front of the mirror, "No one betrayed me. I betrayed myself by delegating my power. I was the weak one for seeking refuge in the arms of mortals." By assuming this total responsibility, you eliminate victimhood, and by doing that, you tear the claws out of the suffering. You are an architect. You are an architect who made a calculation error and has just learned with fire and blood to build walls that no beast will ever be able to penetrate again. The lesson has been paid in full, and the price was your own blindness. Now you see clearly. Now you are ready to build the true walls of your sovereign territory. Thanks to the birth of Iron Trust. The greatest booty extracted from the ruins of a betrayal is the death of external trust and the birth of Iron Trust. The profane world believes that trust is a gift you must give to others. The initiate knows that trust is the heaviest jewel in the crown and that the only neck capable of supporting its weight is his own. After the fire of betrayal has burned your illusions, you discover a terrifying and glorious truth. You are absolutely, infinitely, and irremediably alone. No one will come to protect you. Your allies will abandon you if the price is right. Your friends will look away when the ship sinks. Even love will wither if the vibration changes. But this solitude is not a sentence. It is the immovable pedestal of the gods. When you accept that the only entity in the entire infinite cosmos that will never, under any circumstances, stab you in the back is your own ruthless will, you become untouchable. You stop demanding loyalty from men. You stop making blood pacts. Interact with the world. Close deals, love, and share the table. But do so with your eyes wide open. Enjoy the company of others, as one enjoys the heat of a temporary bonfire, knowing perfectly well that the bonfire will go out tomorrow. And when it goes out, when betrayal occurs again, there will be no tears or surprises. Because your inner empire is no longer supported by the fragile pillars of human friendship. It is supported by titanium columns cast in the entrails of your own and exclusive sovereignty. You are the source, the end, and the only constant. The traitors were just the hammers that helped you discover that your core is unbreakable. Chapter 5. The Savior Syndrome. The Sacrifice of Mercy and the Tyranny of the Living Dead. When you, after years of pain and forging, manage to break the chains of inertia, when you discover the mechanics of mental transmutation, when your health improves, when gold begins to flow into your coffers and icy peace floods your chest, you look around. You look at your blood family, your childhood friends, your partner or colleagues. You see them rotting. You see them suffering for debts they created themselves, crying for diseases born of their own gluttony, and drowning in oceans of victimhood. And then, driven by a false compassion that society has injected into your veins, you feel the imperious, obsessive, and pathological need to awaken them from their slumber. You feel it is your cosmic duty to explain the laws of the ether to them. You give them books they will not read. You give them advice they have not asked for. You give them your money to plug their financial holes. You try to drag them by force toward the mountain of your own sovereignty, believing that if you love them enough, you will win. In this chapter, we are going to wield the bloody blade and slit the throat of false piety. You will learn with a rawness that will tear your soul before freeing it, that trying to save someone who has chosen inertia is a crime against the laws of existence. You will learn to identify the vampirism of the living dead and the art of distance, the parable of the healer and the city of ash, to understand the abysmal danger of pity and the fury of those who love their chains. We must unearth the forbidden writings of the southern plains and remember the fall of the cursed city of Othar. Chronicles tell that Othar was a city in perpetual darkness, whose inhabitants suffered from a terrifying disease that devoured their skin slowly. This grey ash caused chronic pain, but kept them alive for decades in uninterrupted agony. The city revolved around this disease. Citizens begged at the gates, demanding pity. They sang hymns to their own suffering, and a man's status was measured by the amount of ash on his face. Pain was their identity. They clung to it with a twisted pride. One day a healer from the Order of the Black Flame came down from the mountains. He was a master of alchemy who had discovered the root of the disease. He knew the ash was not a divine punishment, but the result of the poisoned water the city drank from the central well. Driven by blind and reckless compassion, the healer entered the city. He charged them nothing. He stood in the central square and shouted, "Brothers, I have brought salvation. You do not have to suffer anymore. The water from the well is poisoning you. Stop drinking from it. Drink from the mountain spring I have brought. Wash your skin, and in 7 days you will be cured. You will be free from this dark torment." To prove it, he took the sickest man, a beggar deformed by ash, washed his face with pure water and gave him a drink. In minutes, the beggar's skin turned pink and healthy. The pain vanished. The healer expected tears of gratitude and expected them to run to the pure water. But a deathly, thick and threatening silence fell over the square. The beggar, who had just been cured, looked at his healthy hands and began to cry in terror. "What have you done to me?" he screamed. "If I am healthy, I can no longer beg. If I do not suffer, no one will have pity on me. You have taken away my livelihood. You have stolen the compassion of my neighbors." He felt robbed of his only social status. The murmur of the crowd turned into a roar of indignation and absolute hatred. The citizens of Othar did not see a savior. They saw a monster threatening to destroy the only identity they knew, their suffering. The elders, whose thrones were based on being the sickest, raised their clubs. A furious mob pounced on the poor healer at once. They gave him no time to explain. They beat him until his bones were shattered, smashed the jars of pure water, spilling the liquid crystal on the ground, and dragged his corpse outside the city gates to be devoured by the beasts of the desert. After murdering their only hope, the citizens of Othar returned to drink from the poisoned well. To the anatomy of pity, the arrogance of the ego. The echo of the clubs of Othar hits the doors of your own house every day. The vast majority of humanity suffers because at a subconscious, dark and twisted level, they are deeply and irremediably in love with their own pain. Before judging them, you must take the scalpel to your own chest and examine the origin of your compassion today. Why do you feel such desperation to save your brother, friend, or spouse drowning in inertia? You tell yourself you do it for love. You convince yourself your pity is a high-vibration act. But in the unbribable mathematics of alchemy, that compulsive need to save the other hides two dangerous parasites: arrogance and the fear of solitude. It is arrogance because by trying to awaken someone who has not asked to be awakened, you are assuming you are superior. You are ruling that the path the other has chosen, the path of ignorance or pain, is incorrect, and that you possess the cosmic authority to correct their soul's plan. You think you know more than the universe itself. And it is fear of solitude because deep down, the ascent to the top terrifies you. As you become more powerful and conscious, the vibratory gap between you and your loved ones widens into an impassable abyss. Conversations with them bore you, their problems seem trivial, and their negativity chokes you. You try to pull them up for company. You do not try to save them because you love them. You try to save them because you do not want to lose them. You want to drag them to your new level of consciousness so they can keep you company on the throne, so you don't have to face the icy cold and majestic loneliness required by true greatness. It is selfishness disguised as holiness. Third, the theft of karma and cosmic blasphemy. The law of material existence is a friction machine designed with terrifying intelligence. The universe uses suffering, hunger, financial bankruptcy, and disease as the only hammers capable of breaking the shell of a man's inertial ego, forcing him to wake up and seek his own power. Pain is the teacher. It is the fire that finally purifies. When your loved one falls into debt due to their own stupidity, the universe is applying the exact pressure needed for them to learn the lesson of value and rigor. The pain of that debt is their teacher, but you, driven by stupid pity, cannot stand to see them suffer. You open your coffers and pay their debts. You save them, you fix it. You think you have performed an act of unconditional love, but in the records of the Black Flame, you have just committed a cosmic blasphemy. You have just stolen their karma. You have interfered with the universe's learning mechanism. By covering their wound with your money or energy, you have taken away their only chance to hit the bottom. You robbed them of the necessary disgust for themselves that wakes up willpower. And since the law of cause and effect cannot be cancelled, that person's karma does not disappear. It simply transfers. By taking on their burden, the vibratory debt passes to your shoulders. Suddenly your business stalls, your health declines, you feel drained. And worst of all, the person you saved, having not learned the lesson, will not only fall back into the mud in months, but will develop a fierce subconscious resentment toward you. They will hate you because, by saving them, you proved their weakness. They will feel inferior, and sooner or later, they will attack you with the fury of Othar. For the vampirism of victimhood, the thirst of the dead. Understand the spiritual biology of the living dead. People who dwell in perpetual complaint, chronic depression, or financial inertia are not empty vessels waiting for knowledge. They are black holes. They are etheric parasites. The inertial individual has no creative force of their own. They need to feed on someone superior's energy. When a victim approaches you to tell you their problems for the 100th time, they are not looking for a solution. If you offer a logical solution or a financial strategy, they will reject it immediately with an excuse. In my case, it's different, or it's too hard. They do not want the cure, they want you to listen to their sad story. By listening with empathy, your electromagnetic field opens. Your pure energy, the prana you should be using to forge your own empire, spills through the open wound of your compassion and flows directly into the parasite's aura. He absorbs your vitality. After the talk, the victim says, "I feel much better. Of course he does. He drank you. He rises refreshed to continue being mediocre for another day. And you? You are left completely emptied. Your head hurts. You feel the world is heavy. You have become the oxygen tank of a drowning person who refuses to learn to swim, and who, in his panic, will pull you down to the bottom of the sea if you do not let go of him right now. The ritual of the severed cord, the murder of pity. The step toward the absolute shadow requires an act of surgical cruelty that repels moralists. You have to extirpate the organ of blind compassion from your own nervous system. This is not an act of hate. Hate still requires energy. It is the establishment of sovereign detachment. You must protect your frequency above all other things. It does not matter if the person rotting in inertia is your childhood friend, the person in your bed, or the mother who gave you life. If their frequency is that of victimhood and defeat, you must apply the law of etheric quarantine. You have to stop giving advice to those unwilling to bleed to apply it. Stop giving gold to the lazy ones. And above all, you have to mutilate useless empathy. When they cry for disasters they orchestrated, look them in the eye with the immobility of a basalt statue. Do not nod your head. Do not say, "I understand, poor you." Respond with the silence of the mountains, or with the icy truth. You are responsible for your ruin. Start working. At first they will call you heartless. They will accuse you of being an arrogant tyrant. Guilt will try to bite your heels, sent by centuries of religious indoctrination, telling you to suffer with your own. Stand that pressure. Do not yield an inch. Enjoy the offense you cause, for it is proof your shields are working and you close the tap. If you have to walk alone, you will walk alone. If you have to dine at the top of the world, surrounded only by the silence of the stars, because your blood family could not bear your light, you will do it. It is 1,000 times better to be a lone wolf ruling the mountain than to be a domestic dog dying of mange in a warm, sick corner. So is the true love of the monarch the unreachable lighthouse. Do not confuse this sacred indifference with a lack of true love. Profane morality taught you that to love is to go down into the mud and sink with your people to show them they are not alone. The monarch knows that going down into the mud only produces 2 dirty men and 1 less empire. True love is staying high and being a great example. The highest love you can offer is to become a beast of light and power so colossal and untouchable that your very existence is an insult to their excuses. The lighthouse does not jump into the waters to pull ships out one by one, crying for the sailors. The lighthouse is cruel in its immobility. It anchors in the rock and stays there. Your cosmic duty is to be the lighthouse. Become a giant of abundance, forge a body of steel, master the ether. Reach a peace so icy and a wealth so obscene that there is no doubt you master the hidden laws of the world. By doing so, you will be unreachable. They will look at you from the mud. Many will hate you, let them hate you now. The hate of a slave does not rust the king's crown. But others, seeing the immensity of your throne and the purity of your fire, will feel something break inside. They will feel absolute disgust for their own mud. Moved by the hunger for greatness, your example woke in them. They will begin to climb the rock with their own hands to reach you. Saftu, the mandate of abandonment. Listen to the final sentence and engrave it in the fire of your consciousness. The savior syndrome has been diagnosed, judged, and sentenced to death. From this millisecond, you officially resign from the role of cheap messiah for lost causes. Give the responsibility for their miseries back to those to whom it belongs. Let the dead bury. It is not your duty to carry the diseases, poverty, and inertia of your lineage. Your only responsibility is to take the spark of life force given to you, light a fire that consumes the world at your feet, and sit on the highest throne. Rip the umbilical cord of others' victimhood from your stomach. If they want to cry, let them drink ash. Chapter 6. The Debt of the Ancestors. From the first moment you open your eyes in this dense plane, society, religions, and traditions inject you with a poisonous mandate. They teach you that you must honor your parents, venerate your ancestors, and carry the surname of your lineage as if it were the banner of an undeniable virtue. You are a slave to the memory of the dead. Under this tyranny of genetic memory, the ordinary man becomes a servant to ghosts. He believes that honoring his family means never surpassing them in a way that makes them feel inferior. If he comes from a lineage of resigned peasants, he feels an abysmal guilt at desiring the throne of a king. His own blood whispers that wealth is a sin. In the high spheres of occult knowledge, biology is not a destiny. It is simply the starting point the spirit chooses to measure its own friction. The initiate knows that most spiritual illnesses, financial blockages and terrors are not theirs at all. They are etheric parasites and karmic debts signed by great-grandparents long ago. In this chapter, we are going to commit the supreme act of family heresy. We will descend into the crypts of your family tree and teach you to wield the sword of sovereign detachment. You will learn to cut the umbilical cord that ties you to the inertia of your ancestors. You will discover the power of becoming the mutant of your name. Tie the parable of the lead collar and the house of Valen. To understand the suffocating weight of blind loyalty and the blessing of betraying the blood, we must open the withered scrolls of the ancient northern plains. 1,000 years ago, the founder of the Valen family was an escaped slave. During his flight, he wore a heavy collar of black lead around his neck, the symbol of his servitude. Upon reaching free lands, instead of melting the collar, he kept it. He placed it on an altar, telling his children, "This collar is the memory of our suffering. Never forget where we come from. Our pain is our identity, and life is a heavy burden we must bear with resignation." Generation after generation, the patriarchs taught this. As the family grew, the collar was melted and multiplied. Each newborn was given a lead ring for their neck. They were taught that working the earth with bare hands, suffering in silence, and living in absolute austerity was the only path of honor. They were loyal to their blood, and that loyalty kept them on their knees in the mud. One day, Kyle was born into the house of Valen. Kyle possessed a dark fire in his gaze. While his brothers accepted the lead ring with sacred resignation, Kyle's neck burned under the metal. He looked at the distant mountains and white stone castles, feeling a fierce hunger for conquest. On his coming of age, Kyle performed the unthinkable. He entered the main chamber, took the original lead collar and went to the square. Under the moonlight, he lit the blacksmith's forge. His parents and cousins screamed in horror at the blasphemy. They warned him that the ghosts of the ancestors would curse him. Kyle did not speak a word. He threw the sacred relic into the roaring fire. His relatives fell to their knees, crying, convinced heaven would fall. But heaven remained immutable. Kyle took the molten lead and poured it into the river, letting the current take the history of servitude away forever. He told them, "Honor based on venerating one's own slavery is the virtue of cowards. I am the end of servitude." Kyle left the valley that night. He was not cursed. Free from the psychic weight of his lineage, his will became sharp as a diamond. He conquered 3 kingdoms and became the emperor of the East. When he died, he did not leave lead collars. He left castles of unassailable stone, and the lesson that man's only duty is to his own greatness. Tus, the etheric DNA and the inheritance of misery. Listen to the cry of Kyle's family, for it is the same cry your own lineage emits whenever you try to raise your head above mediocrity. Profane science teaches that you inherit eye color and bone shape. But in the dark records of alchemy, the physical body is the last frontier. You inherit the etheric DNA of your entire family tree. Your ancestors passed down their unresolved fears. If your great-grandfather lived terrified of poverty after a crisis, that contraction of his electromagnetic field was imprinted on his energy code. It passed to your father and into your blood. When you face a big deal today, you feel a knot in your stomach. That fear is not yours. Wake up. That fear is your grandfather's ghost screaming in your bloodstream, demanding you retreat to be prudent. You inherit the slave's programming. If you come from people who believed money is dirty, your subconscious is programmed to repel opulence. You harbor an invisible oath. If I become rich, I betray my humble parents. While that invisible contract remains, you can read 1,000 magic books and work 20 hours a day, but the universe will close its doors. Your own inherited frequency is sabotaging the invocation. The magnetic field of your ancestors pushes you down into the same sterile earth where they were buried. You must break the cycle. 30. The farce of blind loyalty and blood parasitism. To break the chains, you must annihilate the concept of obligatory loyalty. Society has built a wall of guilt around the word family. They tell you blood calls to blood, and you must tolerate any abuse or negativity because you share a surname. High magic spits on this pathetic sentimentality. The sovereign knows the truth of spirit. The true family, the lion's pride, is not forged by the chance of biology, but by the vibration of the spirit. A silent ally who supports your empire is worth 1,000 times more than a blood brother who envies you. When your aura expands and you materialize majesty, your family of origin will be terrified. They will not celebrate you. They will try to return you to your place with venomous phrases. Don't forget your people, or power has changed you. They are not worried about your soul. They are terrified by their own mediocrity. Your light exposes their cowardice. They desperately need you to be the docile child again, sharing the mud of their failed lives. If you lower your vibration so your relatives don't feel uncomfortable, you are committing cosmic suicide. You are trampling the crown the universe gave you to avoid hurting the feelings of slaves. Loyalty to a sinking ship makes you a drowning man, not a hero. The greatest act of love is to climb the highest rock and show them it's possible. Fair to the birth of the mutant, genetic and spiritual anomaly. You are not here to be another link in the chain of useless repetition. Evolution in a species never occurs by following tradition. It occurs when an anomaly is born, a gene that rebels against its code. The entire species is saved by the insolence of that one creature. That creature is the mutant. You were summoned to be the mutant. It requires divine aggression to assume this role. Being the mutant means doing the opposite of what your blood history dictates. If your parents were fearful, you will be the incarnation of recklessness. If your ancestors lived asking permission to exist, you will take the earth by force of will and never apologize for crushing the weak. If your lineage was sick with victimhood, you will become a colossus of health and wealth so obscene that the universe must erase the old karma of your name. When you assume this role, you go to war against the ghosts in your spine. You will feel the weight of tradition demanding surrender. But if you hold, the impact is cataclysmic. By freeing yourself, the fire of your will descends through the roots of the tree and destroys the karmic contracts of the past. It frees the dead and purifies the blood. You are the filter. You are the forge. The karma of misery ends with you. The ancestral debt dies in your chest. You are the first king of the new dynasty. The pact of the new lineage, the obsidian wall. The true magnitude of this sacrifice resides in building an unassailable fortress around your own. Stop for a moment, contemplate the queen at your side and the heirs of your blood in their cradles, two virgin souls who depend absolutely on the strength of your arm and the coldness of your mind. They are your true responsibility. Do you think you have the right to fail or carry the miserable inertia of your ancestors when those children are watching you to learn how to dominate existence? If you do not cut the umbilical cord of the past, that black poison will pass directly to their veins. They will inherit your unresolved fears and fight your same dirty battles. Your supreme mandate as emperor of your own universe is to build an obsidian wall 500 meters high behind you. Not a single gram of your grandfather's suffering must reach your children's lives. You are the forge where the pain and fear of material existence are crushed. Your heirs will inherit majesty and absolute security. When they grow up, they won't inherit stories of a father who did what he could. They will inherit the privilege of knowing their blood is that of a creator god. They will inherit a material empire where scarcity is just a myth. For them, and for the queen who holds your center, you are not allowed to be fragile. You are the sovereign. Factor the ritual of excision and the ghost's farewell. To seal this transmutation, you must officiate the cold rite of karmic excision. In absolute solitude, visualize your ancestors dragging their chains of ignorance and poverty. Feel their weight trying to anchor you. Do not hold a grudge, for grudge ties them to you. Do not apologize for surpassing them, for apologies weaken your crown. Raise your right hand in the astral plane as an incandescent sword of lethal white light. In one violent movement, cut the dense gray cable joining your stomach to the dark mass of their chains. Decree: the blood pact is annulled. I return your misery to the earth. I am the architect of my own fire. Let the dead bury their dead. Turn your back and never look back. You will feel a supernatural lightness. Oxygen will enter your lungs with radioactive purity. The invisible load that sabotaged your finances and clouded your mind will evaporate like mist under the scorching sun. You are finally free of the biological prison of the past. Your throne is yours alone. The firm ground and the step of the Colossus. You have left the cemetery of your own surname. You are no longer a leaf blown by the wind of genetics, but the rock upon which the waves of past generations break. From today, blind loyalty is a capital sin in your kingdom. Love those close to you and protect your children with the fury of a dragon, but keep the ice wall up for the weak. Your success does not belong to them. Your gold is not their life jacket. Your obligation to save extends only toward your offspring and toward the sky in your constant ascension. The rest of humanity must learn to walk on their own legs. The dynasty of iron has begun. You are the foundation of a new world. Chapter 7. The tyranny of memory, the murder of the past and the monarch's alchemical amnesia. Contemplate humanity with eyes devoid of pity. The common man does not live in the present. The common man is a hologram of the past, projected onto the canvas of the now. When he makes a business decision, he does not take it from the clarity of the moment, but from the terror of a bankruptcy he suffered 10 years ago. He is a ghost. When he looks at his partner, he does not see the person in front of him. He sees the phantom of betrayal inflicted by a lover in his youth. When he tries to raise his voice to claim his throne, his throat closes because he remembers the voice of those who humiliated him as a child. The inertial man believes his personality is fixed. He feels a sick pride in his traumas, his origins of scarcity, or the battles he fought yesterday. But in the darkest chambers of high-voltage magic, memory is not a monument. It is a relentless tyrant. Memory is the shackle that anchors your vibration to a dead frequency. As long as you tell the story of who you were, you are bound. In this chapter, we are going to commit the most violent and necessary act of your spiritual evolution, the murder of the past. You will learn to shed your biography like one tears off a tunic in flames. You will discover the supreme art of alchemical amnesia, dying in life to be reborn each morning as a pure lethal force of history. Try the parable of the King of Ashes and the doorless labyrinth. To understand the magnitude of the poison residing in memory and the farce of identity built on pain, we must open the scrolls of forgotten dynasties and contemplate the ruin of King Balthazar, the monarch who refused to forget. Legends say Balthazar inherited a kingdom devastated by war. In his youth he witnessed great betrayals, but Balthazar was a fierce warrior. With sword in hand he recovered every inch of his empire, executed the traitors, and returned opulence to his city. However, despite having triumphed in the physical world, Balthazar lost the war in the labyrinths of his own mind. He firmly believed that his strength came from the memory of humiliation. He ordered the construction of a palace of black mirrors, and on the walls he had engraved every offense he had suffered, every battle that almost cost him his life, and the name of every man who had betrayed him. He kept broken weapons and bones in iron chests. "I will never forget," the king told himself every single day upon waking up. But the poison operated in silence. By perpetually surrounding himself with the symbols of past pain, the king's vibration became poisoned. He mistrusted his new and loyal allies because he looked at them through the memory of old traitors. So he had them executed based on unfounded suspicions, leaving himself entirely alone in the end. He looked at his coffers overflowing with gold, but felt the terror of the poverty of his youth. So he raised taxes until he suffocated his own people, generating a rebellion that did not exist. Balthazar no longer ruled a prosperous kingdom. He ruled an internal cemetery. His voice became a hoarse echo drowned by the weight of memories. One night, a master from the desert was brought to the throne room. Sensing the heaviness, the old man said, "Majesty, your enemies do not cross the city walls because they already sleep under your bed. You have turned your mind into an ossuary. The past is devouring you from within. To reign, you must set fire to the museum of memory." Balthazar, blinded by the pride of his scars, ordered the sage beheaded. But weeks later, maddened by paranoia and the terror that the betrayals of yesterday would repeat, the king set fire to his own palace of black mirrors, perishing in the flames, suffocated by the smoke of the same memories he refused to renounce. He was crushed by his yesterday. So the fiction of personality and the scab of the ego. Contemplate the ashes of Balthazar's palace and then look at the mausoleum you have built in your own skull. Humanity walks under the spell of a colossal illusion, the illusion of a fixed personality. You ask yourself, who am I? And to answer, your lower mind automatically runs to search through the archives of the past to find a label. You build your identity using the rubble of your tragedies. You form a tragic, noble, and long-suffering character. You feel a sick affection for your scars, believing that without them, you would be nobody. The human ego is so terrified of the infinite void of pure being that it prefers to define itself through suffering than to dissolve. In the alchemy of the absolute shadow, the personality you defend with such pride is not you. It is simply a dead scab. It is a pathetic accumulation of conditioned responses and inherited fears. Every time you justify your inaction by invoking a wound from the past, you are betraying the divinity that dwells within your own entrails. First, the magnetic loop, the esoteric physics of memory. You must understand why the universe punishes you with the incessant repetition of your worst fears. It is not a punishment from the gods, it is a law of electromagnetic physics. The subconscious, the vast ocean of dark waters that connects your biology with the web of the ether, completely lacks the perception of human linear time. When you revive a painful memory, when you remember the humiliation of bankruptcy or betrayal, your brain produces exactly the same chemicals and the same muscle contraction you experienced the day the event occurred. Your subconscious feels that terror in real time. It receives the order, the master is vibrating in betrayal right now. Immediately, the invisible machinery of the cosmos sets to work. The ether curves to alter the minds of your current partners and attract new people who will execute exactly the same play you lived in the past. It is not an external curse. It is you, rewinding the tape of your own ruin, projecting the ghost of yesterday onto tomorrow. Fifth, the poison of vulgar psychoanalysis and the cult of the wound. To break this loop, you must face the most dangerous religion of the modern world, the cult of trauma. Weakened society advises you that to heal, you must dig into your past. They encourage you to sit for hours talking about what they did to you as a child. High magic spits on this folly. Where you put your gaze, you spill your spirit. If you take a wound that had begun to close and open it every day to examine it, the wound will become gangrenous. It will become the center of gravity of your existence. Talking incessantly about your past problems does not dissolve them. It invokes them. It fattens them. The true initiate applies the tyranny of the void to his history. The past dies of starvation when the sovereign refuses to look at it. He knows that the only way to truly annihilate a ghost is not by fighting it or talking to it, but by completely, absolutely, and cruelly withdrawing the food of his attention. He starves the phantoms of his biography until they vanish into the nothingness of the ether. The trap of nostalgia, the sweet poison. The tyrant of memory does not only attack with painful memories, its most subtle weapon is nostalgia. It is immensely dangerous to look back with longing at the glory days. When you sigh and say, "Those were the good times," you are committing an act of treason against your own future. You are declaring your golden age already happened. The ether records that surrender. If you believe the best has already passed, the universe will block any new miracle, complying with your belief that the future is only ash. The monarch feels no nostalgia. He burns the ships of his old victories with the same ferocity he burns his defeats. His golden age is this very millisecond. The art of alchemical amnesia and death in life. Alchemical amnesia is not neurological damage. It is a vibratory disconnection executed with the coldness of a sniper. It is the ability to strip any memory of its emotional charge, turning your life into technical data without power. The inertial man believes he only dies once. The true initiate dies every 24 hours to be new. When night falls, execute the ritual of immolation. Declare that the man who woke up that morning has passed away. His errors have expired. His victories have been dissolved. When the sun pierces the horizon, the individual who opens his eyes is not a continuation of the fatigued slave of yesterday. He is a newborn cosmic being today. When you wake, the lower mind will try to remind you who you are. Remember your debt. Remember your enemy. In that second, invoke alchemical amnesia. Say, That man died yesterday. I do not know his story. I am the embodied will. You are free with the freedom of fire, which has no form, no past, and devours all it touches now. 7. The voice of the new monarch, projecting the void. When a man who has not murdered his past speaks, his voice is dirty. It is loaded with the static of childhood fears and failures. The universe and the multitudes hear that static and do not respect the command. But when you have cleared the record, your voice changes. The vibration becomes dense, dark, and of a terrifying cleanliness. Imagine you are standing before the sea. The wind has no memory of the storm that blew yesterday. It only has the strength of now. So must be the breath of your will. When you speak to the world, when you command circumstances to bow, your decree cannot contain a single shadow of yesterday. It must be a bolt of lightning cutting the ether. Fate, the sepulchre of your withered illusions. Take everything you were until this moment. Take the stories you used to inspire pity and the pain of the years you think you lost. Take your mediocre triumphs too. Gather all that trash and throw it into the pit. Light the black flame and do not look back while it burns. The tyranny of your memory has ended today. You are a new steel. Chapter 8. The magnetism of death. Contemplate the misery in which the multitudes crawl because of this blind terror. The ordinary man lives under the pathetic fantasy of worldly immortality. He acts as if he had thousands of years ahead. He wastes his hours in sterile debates, postpones the conquest of his empires for a tomorrow that never arrives, and is paralyzed by risk. The most disgusting symptom of this fear is moral cowardice. The profane man does not dare to raise his voice or demand the wealth that belongs to him because he is terrified of what the tribe will say. He fears being expelled from the herd. All fear of failure and all shyness are branches of the panic of physical death and loss of identity. In the highest vaults of dark knowledge, the masters of transmutation teach that death is not the end of the work. It is the combustion engine that makes the work exist. In this chapter, we are going to profane the terror of the weak. You will descend into your own grave ahead of time. You will learn to sit the reaper at your left hand today. You will use the cold breath of the abyss as the fire that ignites your sacred urgency. You will emanate an electromagnetic field so terrifyingly free of attachments that the entire universe will have no choice but to bow before the magnetism of a man who already has absolutely nothing left to lose. You will become a sovereign of the void. The parable of the Black Navigator and the Crystal King. To understand the slavery of security and the omnipotent power of accepting the abyss, we must evoke the legends of the ancient southern seas. There were two kings on opposite shores. The first was the Crystal King, ruler of a walled city. This king lived terrified of disease and assassins. To protect his life, he built a windowless palace. He sealed the doors with lead and forbade the word death. He slept surrounded by guards and never led his men for fear of a stray arrow. He believed that by hiding, he was preserving his life. But his existence was a prison of continuous panic. He was a trembling old man before age 40, sickly and secretly despised by his own court. The second was the Black Navigator, a warlord who ruled from the deck of his immense galleon. The navigator had no stone walls. He understood that the ocean would claim his bones sooner or later. Instead of hiding, he made a blood pact with the tempest. He said every morning, "Today is the day my lungs fill with water. I am already dead." One night, the fleet of the Black Navigator reached the shores of the Crystal King. The siege began. The Crystal King, paralyzed by terror, tried to negotiate. He offered gold and lands so they would not spill his blood. He sent his generals to fight, but he hid in the deepest chamber. The navigator led the assault in person with no armor. While arrows rained down, he walked with a cold, supernatural calm. His men, seeing their leader did not dodge danger, fought like immortal demons. When they smashed the door, the navigator found the Crystal King cowering in a corner. The navigator did not kill him immediately. He looked at him with the absolute contempt a king feels for a slave. "You spent your days running from my sword," whispered the navigator. "You sold your honor and rotted in the dark to preserve a breath that was going to be taken anyway. Look at me. I died 20 years ago in a storm. Because I stopped clinging to life, life gave me the world. Fear made you a breathing corpse, the abyss made me a god. To the fiction of tomorrow and the sickness of procrastination. Feel the warm night breeze. That wind is taking the seconds of your existence, dragging them toward an ocean from which they will never return. The most colossal deception the inertial mind tells you is the promise of tomorrow. You tell yourself, tomorrow I will forge my empire, tomorrow I will demand what I am worth. You are under a spell. You believe your bank account of days is infinite. Because you believe you have an unlimited supply, you squander your hours on banalities. You consume the scum of cheap entertainment and tolerate disrespect because you think there will be time to put things in order. This complacency is the poison that atrophies the will of the warrior. In the laws of occultism, the ether does not respond to men who live in the illusion of profane eternity. The ether only bends before the urgency of the living flame. If you do not act with the crushing pressure of knowing the hourglass is emptying, your decrees of power will be weak, lacking fire and devoid of any true gravity or weight. Third, death as an impeccable advisor. To destroy the lukewarmness of your spirit, you must invite the most feared entity in the cosmos to sit at your table. You must turn death into your impeccable advisor. Shadow warriors teach that death is a silent presence, walking perpetually one step behind your left shoulder. You only need to turn your head to feel its icy breath. Far from being a terrifying image that paralyzes you, the constant presence of death is the most purifying filter for the human mind. When you allow the fear of losing money or the fear of being judged to cloud your judgment, stop. Turn your gaze toward your left shoulder and ask your impeccable advisor for the absolute truth of the void. Ask, in the millisecond my heart stops, will the opinion of that mediocre person who criticizes me matter? Will the shame that prevents me from claiming my throne have value? The answer will be a frozen silence that pulverizes your excuses. When you measure anxieties against the black abyss, all worldly fears become pathetic and ridiculous. The consciousness of your own mortality is the sword that cuts the chains of analytical paralysis. It grants you a ruthless clarity. It forces you to stop playing trial and error with your destiny, pushing you to execute the great work of your life with the mathematical precision and violence of someone who knows there is no second chance. Fare the magnetism of the abyss and immunity in negotiation. When a man internalizes this, his electromagnetic field undergoes a radical mutation. He acquires the magnetism of the abyss. Most men operate from the fear of loss. They negotiate with desperation because they fear losing the contract. They lower their heads because they fear being without sustenance. Predators feed on that cold sweat of fear. But when the initiate enters the room, he does so with the immobility of a ghost. The monarch has already assumed his death. It is physically impossible to threaten a man who has already voluntarily lost everything in his mind. Sit at the table with adversaries. Look them in the eye with the depth of the night. Do not seek to convince them. By not fearing that they take the deal or the money, because you have released attachment to your own flesh, your vibration becomes heavy and colossal. You emit an atmosphere of absolute freedom that ordinary men cannot bear. They will detect your magnetism of the abyss. They will feel that they cannot extort you or make you blink at all. Facing that cosmic indifference, adversaries will panic. They will submit. They will offer you better terms. They will give you their loyalty, bewitched by the gravitational force of a leader who is not a slave to animal survival instinct. Power always flees from those who chase it with desperation and surrenders to those who do not care. So with the right of the shroud and the final decree. To seal this alliance with the Reaper, you must officiate the rite of the shroud. Tonight, lie down in the dark. Cross your hands over your chest. Paralyze every muscle, making your breathing so silent it seems non-existent. Imagine, with brutal realism, that your last day has arrived. Feel the cold of death rising through your limbs now. In that state of simulated agony, ask the only valid question. If my flame goes out this second, was I the emperor of my domains, or a coward who asked permission to exist? Did I leave my heirs protected behind a wall of wealth, or did I inherit my excuses to them? If the answer brings disgust, let that pain tear your soul apart tonight. Then in the climax of that mental annihilation, wake up, open your eyes violently, feel the blood pump in your veins like a volcano, rise from the bed like a dead man who smashed the tombstone from the inside. The man who lay down with fear has died. The one who just got up is the Black Navigator. He is a resurrected beast of will now. White to the empire of the now and the roar of the sovereign. The coastal wind tells you how many seconds you have left. The time of lukewarmness is sentenced to the gallows. There is no room for childish procrastination. Each morning must be treated as your last great battle. Do not go to work like a donkey turning a mill wheel. Enter the arena as the sovereign who knows death rides by his side today. Look at your adversaries and your giant goals with the frozen smile of one who does not fear annihilation. You are stardust compacted for a brief time, but your will is the absolute law of physics. Stop clinging to the illusion of profane security. Embrace the magnetism of the abyss. Walk through the world of the living with majesty. A man who no longer asks, begs, or waits, but executes his decree of infinite power over matter, knows that the only worthy tribute to the grave is to fill the world of the living with the undeniable, victorious, and eternal roar of our own and indestructible empire. The time for conquest is not tomorrow. The time for the empire is now. Chapter 9. The Architecture of the Void. Contemplate the psychological misery in which the vast majority of the human race dwells. The profane man is dominated by a pathological terror of scarcity. His mind, conditioned by millennia of famine and lack, operates under the law of animal instinct, to accumulate, retain, and cling to anything that falls into his hands regardless of its value. Observe their lives. Their quarters are filled with broken objects, clothes they do not wear, and rusty tools kept just in case they need them one day. Their minds are saturated with cheap knowledge, toxic news, and useless worries. Their social circles are crammed with people they do not respect, mediocre partners and lukewarm loves held out of fear. They live in a state of perpetual congestion. Their vital energy is stagnant. When these same men kneel to demand that existence deliver true opulence, overflowing wealth, or a royal destiny, the universe ignores them. It does not ignore them out of cruelty, but out of pure esoteric physics. Dense matter obeys the law of capacity. You cannot receive. You cannot pour 100 liters of pure water into a clay pitcher that is already full to the brim with stagnant water and mud. To receive immensity, you must first forge the space to contain it. In this chapter, we are going to destroy the mentality of the accumulating beggar. You will delve into the most disturbing secret, the architecture of the void. You will learn to master the terror produced by nothingness. You will discover that the act of emptying your life of the mediocre is the most violent and effective invocation to attract excellence. You will learn to hold the abyss with a cold smile until the cosmos is forced to collapse upon you, bringing the empire that belongs to you by right. The parable of the merchant of the Black Coast. To understand the suffocation of accumulation and the power of annihilation, we must walk along the ancient shores of the sea, where the salt breeze hits the stone and merchant ships challenge storms in search of glory. Legends of the Black Coast tell of a merchant named Valen, owner of the largest port. In his youth, Valen knew hunger. That trauma turned him into a compulsive hoarder. His immense stone warehouses were filled to the ceiling with cheap merchandise, rotting wood, and rusted iron. Valen bought any junk that smaller ships brought, terrified of seeing his warehouses empty. One day, an emissary from the Emperor of the North arrived with a scroll sealed in red wax. The Empire has chosen your port to deposit the treasure of the 10 nations. Tomorrow at dawn, the Golden Fleet will arrive with 1,000 chests of pure gold, white silk, and diamonds. Prepare your warehouses. Valen was ecstatic, but looking at his warehouses, panic set in. They were full of trash. He tried to move the rot, but he failed. The Golden Fleet anchored in the bay, sails shining. The Admiral demanded to see the vaults. When the iron doors opened, the smell of damp and rotting leather filled the air. There was no space for a single coin. Valen begged, "Give me a month, leave the gold on the beach." The Admiral looked at him with the contempt reserved for slaves. The Emperor's gold does not wait in the sand, nor does it mix with the trash of cowards. If you love your scrap so much, keep it. The Golden Fleet sailed away. Valen fell to his knees, weeping tears of blood, realizing his curse. Out of terror of losing the value of junk, he had rejected absolute gold. That night, Valen took a torch soaked in pitch, With eyes full of fierce certainty, he walked to his own warehouses and set them on fire. The flames lit the coast for 3 days. Valen sat on the sand, contemplating the destruction, absorbing the heat and the terrifying vacuum of his vaults. Months later, with the warehouses clean and empty, a new fleet from the south anchored in the bay. Seeing the immensity of Valen's perfect empty space, they filled it with treasures, finally making him the sovereign of the coast. The fire had devoured his past, but the void had engendered his eternity. He had learned that space is the greatest asset. Taikuis, the law of horror vacui, the pressure of the ether. The universe obeys a fundamental law known by ancient alchemists as horror vacui, the terror of the void. Nature does not tolerate absolute nothingness. If you create a perfect vacuum in a sealed chamber, the external pressure of the universe will do whatever is necessary to fill it. Energy will collapse inward with force to restore balance. In material manifestation, this law is your most lethal weapon. The ether, the invisible substance connecting all minds, acts like a high-pressure fluid. All the gold, power, elite allies, and majestic opportunities you demand are floating in the ether, pressing against the bubble of your life. They are trying to enter, but they bounce off. They bounce because your life is hermetically sealed and saturated with trash. You emit a frequency of conformism when you tolerate a mediocre job because it pays the bills. You emit a frequency of terror when you maintain a dead relationship because it's better than being alone. For the ether, there is no distinction. It only sees occupied space. If the king's chair in your hall is occupied by a beggar, the king will never enter. If you wish to invoke absolute opulence, you have to become the architect of your own demolition. You have to wield Valen's torch and set fire to the rotting warehouses of your existence. You must clear the way for the greatness that is currently being blocked. Thres, the purge of matter, the baptism of fire. The cleaning must begin in the densest plane, your physical environment. The matter surrounding you is an exact extension of your electromagnetic field. You cannot have a sharp, lethal mind if you dwell in a pigsty of accumulation. Observe the corners of your castle. Open your bedroom closets, desk drawers, and the vaults of your home. Look at them with the cruelty of an executioner. How many clothes do you keep that you haven't worn in years? How many broken objects do you keep because you feel pity for throwing them away? That, just in case, is the national anthem of losers. Keeping broken things in case worse times come is a decree of black magic against your destiny. You are informing the universe that you do not believe you are capable of generating the wealth to buy something new in the future. Take thick black trash bags. Become a tyrant of your own space. Everything that is not aesthetically perfect, useful, or that does not emit a vibration of absolute majesty must be exterminated from your sight. Do not try to sell the trash to recover a few coins. A king's time is worth 1,000 times more than haggling for crumbs. Simply strip yourself of it. Feel the physical pleasure of creating space. Watch the empty shelves. Feel the air in your room become lighter and more conducive to the cosmos. You have created the first level of the void. IV, the purge of the court, the extermination of vampires. The second level requires a degree of emotional coldness most men do not possess. The purge of the human environment. An empire cannot be led by a monarch surrounded by fools, parasites, and cowards. Examine the people who occupy space in your agenda and in your inner circle with a magnifying glass of ice. Who are they? Are they allies who push you toward greatness, who speak of empires and honor? Or are they energy vampires who only call to complain about the economy and tell you their mediocre dramas of victimhood? If you spend your time listening to the tragedies of the weak, you are filling the warehouse of your mind with rotting leather. Cutting off these individuals terrifies the ego. The ego whispers, if you stop talking to them, you will be alone. That is exactly the trap you must love. You must be willing to face absolute social vacuum. You must be willing for your phone not to ring for weeks. You must be willing to walk by the sea accompanied only by your silence. When you eliminate parasites, you create a black hole in your relational field. The universe, forced by the law of horror vacui, will fill that space. But this time, the ether will send men and women of your same voltage. You will attract empire builders who seek alliances to devour the world, but they will never approach if you are with sheep. V, the purge of the spirit, the fasting of distraction. The third and deepest level of demolition is the purge of the mental ether. Modern man has a visceral dread of the silence of his own mind. He floods his brain with an incessant stream of stimuli. If he is in silence for a minute, he consumes the audio-visual trash of the herd, news he cannot control, the fake lives of strangers, and noise. He fills the void of his mind with noise, because if he let silence settle, he would have to hear the dull cry of his own mediocrity. To forge the lightning bolt of your will, you have to turn off the noise of the profane world. Institute the tyranny of silence. Forbid the consumption of sterile information. Stop watching what others do. Your only cosmic concern is the construction of your own material and spiritual empire. Learn to sit in an empty room, in semi-darkness, without music or distractions, and endure the immensity of nothingness. When you empty your mind of the noise of the world, the inner chamber of your skull becomes a vault of perfect resonance. It is in that terrifying and majestic void where the monarch's intuition sprouts. The great strategies, the business ideas that break markets, and the solutions that will change the destiny of your lineage do not come from outside noise. They are born from the pressure of the inner void. You must become a master of the silent darkness. For the terror of the abyss and the test of icy faith. Be warned of the crisis ahead. When you execute the architecture of the void to perfection, when you have burned the ships, cleared your closets, cut off the parasites, and turned off the noise, you will experience a heartbreaking phenomenon. You will experience the withdrawal syndrome of mediocrity. You will feel vertigo. A primitive voice in your brain will scream that you have made a mistake, that you have destroyed everything, and that you are going to stay ruined and alone forever. You will feel physical terror, an anxiety that you have let too much space into your life. This is the moment where 99% of men break. They run back to their trash. They call their old toxic friends and turn the noise back on to feel the warmth of the familiar mud. You will not break. You will look that terror in the eye and smile with the coldness of a stone gargoyle. You will know that vertigo is the pressure of the ether accumulating outside your walls. It is the sign that the vacuum pump is working. Sit in the middle of your empty palace. Embrace nothingness. Be cruel to your own need for comfort. Do not seek to fill the space with cheap substitutes. You must cultivate icy faith. The faith of the sovereign who does not cross his fingers, but crosses his arms and waits with murderous patience, knowing the universe must eventually pour gold. Fasten the legacy of the immaculate vault, the throne of the heirs. If at any moment in the silence and cold of the void you feel your strength falter, look at the supreme reason for this annihilation. Contemplate the queen who guards the secrets of your life, and look down at those two small heirs of your lineage. Do you have the right to inherit them a castle full of emotional trash and rotten relationships? Will you leave them the dirty work of cleaning the pigsty you didn't have the courage to incinerate? You cannot build a generational empire on foundations of rubble. You must bequeath them an immaculate vault, a chamber of white marble, cold, pure, and spacious, so they can fill it with their own conquests. Your sacrifice in the void is the most fierce act of love you can perform for them. You are burning the world's distractions so that all your energy is unified in the colossal mission of forging a wall of gold and power around their lives. Let your hand not tremble when you have to empty your life to forge the eternity of your own kin. Fasten the decreto of annihilation. Stand up. The dark wind of the coastal night lashes the walls of your fortress, taking away the dross that no longer serves. The era of cowardly accumulation has been sentenced to the gallows. This very night, you will begin the purge. Become the fire of the Black Coast. Burn the ships of your contingency plans and destroy the bridges. Empty your space of the scrap that anchors you to poverty, and empty your mind of the story that tied you to defeat. Force existence to retreat before the immensity of your blank space. Do not ask for wealth. Create a void so massive and threatening that wealth has no choice but to rush toward you like an inexhaustible waterfall. Fill every corner of your material empire with the weight, the shine, and the majesty of absolute power. The old has been consumed. Let the new occupy its place with the force of 1,000 suns. Chapter 10. The Crown of Thorns and Gold. There is a white lie, a fairy tale woven by poets of weakness, promising men that the path to greatness culminates in a celebration. The profane, intoxicated by the illusion of recognition, start their conquest, believing that at the peak they will be surrounded by loyal friends and courtiers. That is the fantasy of the slave who longs to be loved. The truth of the monarch is abysmally different and 1,000 times more terrifying. As you ascend the vibratory scale and forge your will, the atmosphere changes, oxygen becomes scarce, pressure increases. Relentlessly, the people who walked beside you begin to suffocate. They stop. They look at you with terror, incomprehension, and resentment. They abandon you on the mountainside, unable to withstand the voltage of the new reality you are building. One day, after executing the exterminion of your fears and crossing the threshold of power, you drive your sword into the world's snowy summit. You find you are complete, infinitely and majestically alone. This is the hardest truth. In this chapter, we will destroy the terror of loneliness. We will extirpate the pathological need for company that weakens your pulse. You will learn why isolation is not a defect, but the physical confirmation of your divinity. You will discover the weight of the crown of thorns and gold, and learn to rule the empire of silence with the elite. Hi, the parable of the monarch of the Black Mountain. To understand the physics of isolation and the non-negotiable price of the crown, we recall the monarch of the Black Mountain. Legends say a king was dissatisfied with common metals. Oracles told him the only crown that does not corrupt must be forged with stellar metal at the crater of the Black Mountain, the highest peak of the known world. The king gathered his army and friends and began the ascent. At the foothills the army marched singing, but as they crossed the clouds, the cold bit. The servants refused to continue. "We don't need a stellar crown," they said. The king left them. At the slopes of eternal ice the air became so thin that lungs burned. The generals panicked. "You are crazy," they shouted. "You lead us to death for a piece of metal." They turned back. Finally, near the crater, the king's brothers-in-arms fell in the snow. "We love you, Majesty, but we cannot take another step. If you continue, you walk alone into the abyss." The king looked at them with icy compassion. He did not force them to rise. Without a word, he turned his back on the world of men and scaled the last meters in absolute solitude. He reached the crater. With bare, bleeding hands, he extracted the stellar metal and plunged it into the dark fire. He forged the crown with blows of will. While the metal was still red-hot, he placed it upon his head, fusing it to his skull. The king of the Black Mountain stood at the precipice, crowned with fire and thorns. He looked down. Clouds covered the lower world. He did not hear the songs of servants or the sighs of friends. He only heard the howl of the cosmic wind and the heavy beat of his own immortal heart. He was the absolute owner of the universe through the silence. To the physics of vibratory isolation. Listen to the wind of the Black Mountain. It is the same wind blowing in your life today. The loneliness of the leader is an implacable law of vibratory physics. Everything in the universe operates by the law of resonance. Similar frequencies attract. Disparate frequencies repel with violence. The ordinary man vibrates in a low, heavy frequency. His energy is composed of fear of poverty and the need to fit into the herd. When you were part of that herd, you fit perfectly. But when you invoked absolute power and began to condense the unified ray of your mind, your electromagnetic frequency suffered a quantum leap. Your internal motor began to spin at a terrifying speed, creating heat. What happens to dross in a centrifuge spinning at 10,000 revolutions per minute? It is violently expelled to the margins. That is what happened to your social circle. It is not that you became bad. It is that your aura became uninhabitable for low-frequency organisms. When they approach you, they feel a tightness in their chest. They feel your words are knives tearing through their excuses. Your presence exposes the failure of their lives. They lack air. By mere biological instinct, they must flee from you. They must invent that you have become a tyrant to justify their flight. The loneliness of the sovereign is the electromagnetic shield the universe creates for the throne. Thread the morning of the ascent and the trap of melancholy. In this process of cosmic expulsion, the seeker experiences a dangerous crisis, the morning of the ascent. As your palace empties, your lower mind will feel stings of melancholy. You will miss the noise and empty conversations. You will feel the poisonous temptation to descend the mountain and extinguish your fire, just to feel the warmth of company. It is vital that you decapitate this melancholy with the sword of cold reason. What you miss is not those real people. If you sat with them today, you would not last 5 minutes listening to their complaints and cowardice. They would cause you nausea. What your mind misses is the illusion of the pack and the primitive instinct of the monkey. But you are no longer the monkey, and there are no predators larger than you in this forest. You must learn to embrace the empty chamber. You must delight in the echo of your own footsteps. Sovereignty is not the state of being without others. It is the state of being absolutely accompanied by the majestic weight of your own divine presence. When a king shuts himself in his private quarters, he is not abandoned. He is protected. He is recharging the core of his nuclear reactor. Silence is the throne where the will crystallizes. Thevi, the inner circle, the queen and the new blood. The universe does not demand that loneliness be a hermetic tomb. The monarch rules silence, but the architecture of the empire contemplates a sacred core where only those whose vibration has been tested by fire have access. You do not rule to please the multitudes in the valley. You rule to build a wall of obsidian around your own blood. In the glacial solitude of the summit, you do not hold the crown for the void. Beside you walks the queen of the transcendental mind, an ally who did not flee when the air became thin, a priestess who challenges you to be a monster of perfection. This loyalty is forged in the anvil of absolute exclusivity through the mystic marriage of purpose. Under the protective mantle of that alliance, breathe the 2 seeds of your lineage. Observe your heirs, the one of 4 winters and the one who has barely seen his first snow. Your isolation from the world has a lethal purpose. The wall of silence ensures the atmosphere within your castle is impeccable, isolating them from contagious mediocrity. They will not grow up listening to failed uncles. They will not sit at tables where victimhood is celebrated. They will grow in the elite environment of the palace you have cleared of dross. They will see a father of steel and a mother of light. By vibratory osmosis, they will assume that wealth and sovereignty are the natural condition of their blood. For the weight of gold and the voice that cuts the darkness. Understanding the monarch's loneliness requires accepting the crushing burden of provision. This is the essence of the crown of thorns. The crown is of bright gold, granting you the ability to manifest colossal riches. Gold flows to you without interruption to guarantee opulence. This is the visible majesty that slaves envy from a distance, but inside, touching your skull, are the thorns of absolute responsibility. Being the monarch means the weight of survival and security falls brutally on your shoulders. There is no one to blame for a breach. You are the ceiling and the floor. That pressure is the thorn that keeps you lethally alert while the rest of the castle sleeps under you. In that isolation, you execute your deepest labor. Through the dark metal cylinder, you project your voice into the ocean of the ether. You operate from a land of shadows where inertia tries to devour the spirit of weak men. You sit in the dark, light the forge of your will, and emit your knowledge to the ends of the planet via your voice. You speak to thousands and transform destinies, but you do so from the strict isolation of your obsidian chamber. The sovereign never descends to the arena to mix with the public. He delivers fire from above, collects the tribute in gold that belongs to him, and returns to his throne. Loneliness keeps your voice pure and uncontaminated by noise. Third, the embrace of the cold and the apotheosis of the sovereign. The ascent is over. Clouds are far below your feet. Breathe the frozen, purifying air of the summit. No longer seek the approval of men in the valley. Accept that the price of walking as a god in the world of matter is exile from normality. Normality is the collective suicide pact of the human race. You have renounced that pact of the ordinary. For that crime the universe has condemned you to greatness. Accept the crown of thorns and gold. When the pressure of leadership tries to bend you, do not seek profane shoulders to cry on. Close your eyes, clench your jaw, and let the hot gold fuse your spirit with the eternal. Sit on the throne. Enjoy the echo of your breathing in the hall. Look at the queen and the heirs protected by your colossal shadow. Look at the starry sky. Knowing the infinite cosmos is paying you homage. You have murdered the hope of the mediocre. You are the unified ray. You are the void that attracts abundance. Do not apologize for the cold of the summit. Embrace the ice of your own perfection. Only in the most ruthless, sacred, and invincible loneliness does man cease to be a creature of clay. and become by right of strength the undisputed sovereign of his own and eternal destiny. The crown is yours. Conclusion: the slave's last breath. The journey has ended. The fire of the forge has consumed the last block of coal, and in a few moments the sound of this voice will be completely extinguished, returning you to the crushing silence of your own room. The immutable laws of the blind universe, the secrets of influence in the ether, and the tyranny over your own biology. The relentless magnetism of death has been deposited in the exact center of your consciousness. You have peered into the deepest precipice of the human psyche. We have torn away the blindfold of cheap hope, stripped you of moralistic guilt, and shown you, with a rawness that admits no debate, that the universe owes you absolutely nothing. But it is ready to give you everything if you have the sacred cruelty to demand it without trembling. Listen with cold blood. All this knowledge is a deadly poison if you decide to turn it into simple theory. Metaphysics is not an imaginary refuge to escape a world that intimidates you. The magic of the absolute shadow is the science of power. If tomorrow at dawn you are still the same lukewarm man, if you keep postponing your empire, and if you keep begging the world for mercy, then these words will not have saved you. They will have condemned you. From today, ignorance has ceased to be your shield. If you fail now, you will know perfectly well that it was by your own cowardice. Tursan, the burning pyramid of excuses. The time has come to officiate the last rite, the funeral of your old identity. Breathe deeply. Fill your lungs with the night air. That air entering your chest at this instant contains the last breath of the slave you once were. Summon in your mind all the pathetic excuses with which you have justified your mediocrity until this very day. Take the childhood trauma you used as a shield. Take the betrayal you ruminated on to inspire pity. Take the fear of what the plebeians will say about you. Take the sickly belief that you do not deserve obscene wealth, that you must be humble, and that sterile sacrifice is a virtue. Visualize all that trash piled up in a pyramid of mud. Now, with the inscrutable gaze of the sovereign, throw the torch. Watch the victimhood burn. Watch the useless self-pity char. Feel the heat of the fire melting the final link that bound you to the herd of weak men. Do not shed a single tear for the man who just died in that bonfire. He was a prisoner, a beggar of existence and a ghost. Let him turn to ashes. The universe will not miss him, and neither should you. Exhale, release the black smoke from your lungs. The slave has passed away officially and irrevocably. You are free from the weight of that corpse. 3. The weight of iron in the dense world. The individual inhaling the next breath is a newborn in the realm of Colossi. He is the mutant of his lineage. He is a beast of unwavering will, devoid of guilt, free of the past, and suckled by the cold certainty of the abyss. But the throne is not inherited in the air. It is conquered in the mud of action through your relentless force. Starting tomorrow, material reality will test the steel you have just forged. Bureaucrats, cowards, and parasites will try to drag you back to their level. Circumstances will try to hit you. Your own body will ask you to return to the anesthetic comfort of laziness. Your response must be of an astonishing brutality. Crush the inertia now. Work on your financial and spiritual empire with the urgency of a man who has death itself breathing down his neck. Close your lips and do not announce your plans to anyone. Move in the world of business, relationships, and power with the icy silence of the night mist, wrapping your adversaries in the web of your sovereign indifference. For the throne of the absolute shadow, always remember the immensity of your purpose. You are not building this material empire to satisfy the applause of anonymous multitudes. The noise of the masses is ephemeral and cheap. You are conquering this dense land to erect an impregnable wall of obsidian around your own, to crown the queen who guards your back and your blood, to guarantee that the blood of your heirs flows in an ecosystem of opulence, nobility, and absolute freedom, immune to the plagues of scarcity and conformism that devour the world out there. Your tyranny over destiny is the greatest and most lethal act of love you will ever execute. The Codex closes here, but your true story barely begins. Rise from the ground. Shake off the dust of yesterday. You are no longer a seeker of truth. You are the truth incarnate wielding a sword. Assume the glacial silence of the summit. Embrace the exile of the gods and march toward the three-dimensional world, not to ask permission, but to collect from existence every last coin of your glory. The last territory belongs to you. The empire is your only reality.